Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video I'm going to do some feedback on Azamat's test. So those of you who regularly watch my channel and those of you who've been here for a long time might remember Azamat. He took a test with me a few months ago. I don't remember when exactly. He got an 8. He's one of those people who's, has aspirations to get that 9 and is constantly trying to make improvements. So this is his second test on the channel. And let's see if he's made any improvements. So previously he got 8.0 and let's see if he does better this time. Let's jump straight into it. Remember, if you want to have your own test like this, if you want to be a candidate on the channel and have your own feedback, then join one of my groups. I'm on Facebook and Telegram. Links to everything are in the description, but let's get into this test. Good morning. My name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
Good morning. I'm Azamat Sultan.
And what should I call you?
You can just call me Azamat.
Cool, nice, easy, clear, easy to understand. Boom.
My first name.
Thank you. Now, in this first, you don't need anything else. You can say Azamat's my first name. It doesn't matter. It's not part of the test. Keep it as simple as possible. What's your full name? Full name. What should I call you? Azamat. And it's fine. Part of the test. I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Where do you live?
I live in Nikus. It's a city here in Uzbekistan. It's located, I think, in the northern part of the country.
Seems strange, doesn't it, to say it's located, I think, in the northern part of the country. I think is like weak modality when we're not sure of things. Like, where is Batumi? Batumi is in, I think it's in Georgia, isn't it? I don't know, but I think. But surely you know the location of your city, no? Okay. And what do you like about living in this place?
The thing I like is its cuisine.
Okay, cool. The thing I like is, so kind of bit of clefting. Canada says cuisine, but it really should be cuisine. It has a qua, and the stress is on the last syllable, cuisine. Not cuisine, but cuisine, cuisine, cuisine.
We have a lot of restaurants serving not only traditional meals, but also
Cool, not only, but also good cohesion.
meals from other countries. And I really like our meals.
Cool, I like how the answers are short, they're direct, they're extended appropriately for task 1. The candidate isn't over-speaking, the answers are not too long. Nice. And is it easy for young people to find interesting things to do in this town?
We have a lot of entertainment facilities.
We have a lot of really nice intonation. I don't know about entertainment facilities. We have a lot of entertainment facilities. I've seen this word many times from candidates from Uzbekistan and from candidates from Bangladesh. They love the word facilities, but they almost never get it right. I don't know. We have a lot of entertainment facilities. It sounds like a very formal way of saying, like, yeah, there's a lot of entertaining stuff to do. And in part 1, part 3 of the IELTS test, you're talking about fairly serious topics, and so some academic, slightly more formal language might be expected, but we certainly don't expect overly formal language in part 1, so we have entertainment facilities. To me, it doesn't sound wholly situationally appropriate.
And we also have football pitches and
cool football pitches, nice topic-specific vocab.
I think that the fact that we have a lot of computer clubs, it makes it a very livable place for young people.
Cool, a little bit staccato with the pronunciation, right? Makes it a little bit livable. Not a big problem, but it is just slightly noticeable. And what would you like to change about this place?
Let me think. I wish we had a metro.
Cool, I wish we had a metro. Nice little wish plus past simple construction.
Because it's a bit difficult to get to your destination, especially during rush hours.
A bit rash hours. Rash, we get sound rash. Slightly Russian phonology, right? Rash hours instead of rush hours.
You can find buses and you can get stuck when you go by taxi. And if we had a metro, it would be better for.
Cool. Candidate is activating conditionals. Is it a bit hacky? Possibly, but I think it's okay. It's used to relatively good effect, I think.
For people to get around the city.
Let's talk about reading now. Do you like reading?
Actually, I don't like reading, apart from reading articles and doing reading tests for IELTS.
Doing reading as for IELTS. I don't just doing reading for IELTS. Don't see any reason for the word as here. It sounds a bit confusing. I'm generally against talking about IELTS in an IELTS exam. I'd prefer candidates never, ever, 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 ever to mention the test that they're taking in the test. But okay.
I don't particularly enjoy reading books.
Particularly, a bit of struggle over that word. Particularly, schwas are a big thing in English. The schwa sound is the sound, and pretty much all of our unstressed vowels in English are schwas. They're. So words like particularly, they might look like they should be pronounced as particularly, but they're not. It's particularly. If it's American English, it's particularly. I can't do it. I don't know how the Americans speak. Particularly. British English, particularly. But you really hear those schwas. Particularly. The candidate kind of struggles with that word. Just listen to it again.
I don't particularly enjoy reading
Particularly just kind of disappears towards the end. So there's the slightest limitation in phonology, perhaps.
books, as it makes me bored.
As it makes me, again, just slightly off with intonation. In general, I think the candidate's intonation is good, but there are some instances where it becomes a little bit choppy, a little bit staccato like this.
And I think that it's really time-consuming thing compared to watching movies, for instance.
Cool, compared to gets this right. I remember in the previous test and before speaking to Azamat mentioning this like Uzbek ED sound, like compared to, and we want it to sound more like compared to or American compared to, and he gets it there, and it's used compared to. It sounds fine there.
Compared to watching
nice
movies, for instance.
I do remember, I think later on in the test, he did have some difficulty with that compared to, but let's wait for it. And does your country have a lot of famous authors?
As I said, I don't really like reading. That's why.
Yeah, as I said, I don't really like reading. I never like it when candidates kind of reject questions. It's like, as I said, I don't like reading. I'm not saying that the candidate is doing that, but sometimes candidates, they don't play along. And answering honestly is absolutely fine, but sometimes you have to play along. And even if you're not a fan of reading, I still think reasonably you should know whether or not your country has famous authors, right? Let's say, for example, I'm not a big fan of, tennis. But if you ask me, are there any famous tennis players in the UK? I'd say, yeah, I don't watch tennis much, but, there are players like Emma Raducanu. I think she won some big tournament in America a few years ago, so she became a superstar. And then before her, we had this guy, Andy Murray. I think he won even Wimbledon a few times. So even if I don't like it, I can still say if there are famous people. If you can't think of any famous writers, that's probably a sign that they're not super famous. So you can say, no, I don't think we have any super famous writers. Historically, we had a lot of influence from Russia, and so at school we studied a lot of Russian literature, something like that. Yeah.
I'm not really well versed in the sphere.
Cool. I'm not well versed in. Really nice.
Of any bookworm, so I don't know any.
Yeah, candidates trying to get out that word bookworm, but when you force vocab out, it can affect your fluency. Just listen again how using the word bookworm has negatively affected, in my opinion, the fluency.
As I said, I don't really like reading. That's why I'm not really well versed in the sphere of any bookworm.
So you see, right? It's killing his fluency because I think in his brain he's trying to activate difficult vocab, but it takes him a bit of time to find it, and so it's better not to do that.
I don't know any authors who publish.
Authors, yeah, not authors, but authors. This AU sound in English is usually in British English pronounced as an O, like in horse. In American English, it's more like ah. Authors. British English, authors, but not the word. We don't, authors, I think the candidate said, or authors. Let's have a listen.
verb, so I don't know any Ausers who
Wowzers. Yeah, so there's definitely, the th sound is a problem there too, and that AU sound. So, that's a mispronunciation that potentially puts strain on the listener.
publish in a sort of famous books or any novels.
Let's talk about the weather then. What's your favorite kind of weather? So I've moved on to a new topic, weather.
I don't have any particular favorite weather.
And again, it feels a little bit like I know the candidate isn't doing this, but rejecting questions. Some examiners might not pay any attention to it at all. Some examiners might see it as evasion tactics, and they might not like it. It's always best if you can answer the questions directly and just play ball. What's your favorite kind of weather? I guess it's rain. And then say, but to be honest, I don't really have any favorite one. But try to answer the question. And I think you do. I think you will answer the question in a moment. But I always think it's better to put the direct answer first.
But I don't mind any sort of weather. But if I had to pick one, it would definitely be snow.
Cool. Put it the other way, right? What's your favorite kind of weather? Well, if I had to pick one, I would probably say snow. But I don't mind other types of weather. And that for me seems like a more logical answer or a more direct answer to the question.
I mean, when it's snowing, I can play different
Nice paraphrasing and nice further explanation.
sorts of games with my child. I can make him a snowman, and I think that it makes it lets us to make memorable memories.
It lets us to make memorable memories. So a couple of problems here. Grammar lets us to make. Should know this, right? Let somebody do something, not let somebody to do something. And lets us to make memorable memories. It's a little bit like oily oil, right? It's a tautology, memorable memories. Sounds odd, memorable memories.
With my children.
And is there any kind of weather that you don't like?
Yeah, I think that I don't like when it's raining heavily.
I don't like when it's raining. That is acceptable. I still prefer I don't like it when it's raining. I think that's a more natural way of phrasing it, but it is, I have heard L1 users say, I don't like when it's raining. For me, it sounds like a mistake. I want to use, I don't like it when it's raining, but it's not a mistake. But to me, it sounds like a mistake.
As I drive everywhere in my city,
good use of as for reasons, like using as a synonym of because, very nice.
It makes it difficult to see the road clearly.
Makes it difficult, nice use of causative make with an adjective, good.
And it's a bit dangerous, as you can...
cool, a bit dangerous, nice softening, detensifying adverb of degree.
Have an accident if you are not careful enough.
Cool. I really like the candidate's development. I think the candidate's development is full, it's relevant, it's extended, it's lovely. And how often do you check weather apps? I used to, so I make all of these IELTS tests myself because I don't want candidates to, practice with things and then get the same questions. And I was always fairly generous with the part 1 questions, but I know that the tendency in IELTS at the moment is to create, usually get one super familiar theme and then one theme that's like a bit weird. And so weather apps was one thing that I thought of, and I thought, okay, weather apps is too specific. Let's do weather, but ask, like, do you use weather apps? Which is it's not as easy as do you have a big family, right? It's a bit, and that is the tendency in IELTS. In part 1, you might get some odd questions like this. So I'm trying to recreate that experience.
Pretty much every day. Whenever I'm leaving there.
Pretty much every day. Really like it.
I'm leaving home early in the morning.
I like these whenever clauses too. Whenever I'm leaving home.
I check the weather forecast from Yandex, and it allows me to choose the
allow somebody to do something nice,
suitable outfit, and to make this
again, outfit is really strong nominalization, like finding that noun. I often find that in more informal or even in some neutral situations, we don't always look for the specific words. And interestingly, an interesting pattern in English is the overuse or the frequent use of non-specific language. So the candidate uses outfit here, right? And outfit is that one word that encapsulates a lot of stuff. But to my ear, it sounds just slightly, maybe it's not formal, but it is, it's nominalization. It's lexically dense. That's the term I'm looking for. It allows me to choose the correct outfit. Whereas a more natural phrasing would be, yeah, I check the weather forecast every day, and then, I know what to wear, or I know what to put on and what not to put on. For example, like if it's really cold, I know that I need to put a hat on. Whereas the candidate goes with the super efficient, like it allows me to choose my outfit, which is absolutely fine, but it doesn't really match the type of phrasing that we might expect from an L1. You don't have to match L1. IELTS isn't about, well, it kind of is in a way, but it's not all about just copying the patterns of British people. So outfit here, okay, fine.
Decisions whether I have to wash my car
Weather, we get small problems with the th and th sounds here, right? Weather, but it's okay.
or not. That's why I do this literally every day.
Cool, that's why I do this. Nice use of substitution and literally every day. Very nice. And do you trust the weather forecasts that you see in apps?
Not always, but in most of the cases, in
most cases is better than in most of the cases, but okay.
application, there is the indication of percentage. For instance, if
not percentage, but percentage.
It shows rain, and next to it there is a percentage, like
not a percentage, but a percentage. And this percentage is the probability of rain. So, you might reach for that word, or it tells you how probable it is that it might rain in British speech, or it gives you the probability of the rain in more lexically dense speech.
40% or 50%, and depending on that percent,
not percent, but percent.
I sometimes trust and sometimes don't.
And have you ever had to cancel your plans because of bad weather?
I can't remember any particular event. Yeah.
Cool, particular here, he gets it more or less okay. It still feels like, it feels like I can hear the particular, and I really want to hear those schwas, particular, but okay.
But just a couple of months ago, we had to cancel our trip to the mountains because of the
cool, nice intonation, to the mountains.
This rainy weather.
Yeah, but rainy weather. So I think the candidate's pronunciation is really nice, but there are certainly some issues with that r sound with rainy weather. Let's just listen again.
So we had to cancel our trip to the mountains because of this rainy weather.
Rain, it's really quite noticeable, isn't it? Because of this rainy weather. And he even takes a little pause before it to say because of this rainy weather, because pronouncing that rolling R, there is a term for this R, and my goodness, I've forgotten it. Okay, I'll go with rolling R. Yeah, it's not easy to pronounce always, and so sometimes we need a little pause. This is something I think you can work on. I don't know. I know sometimes people have like a speech impediment that stops them from being able to pronounce words, like a physical problem. But this rolling R, you should... I think this is something that you can do meaningful work on and eliminate that pronunciation problem. Pronunciation in general is a horribly difficult thing to improve for many people. For some people are really lucky and they just tune into the sounds and they get it right immediately. For other people, it requires a lot of dedicated work and it can take a long time, and you can sometimes see very, very minute results. But I do think learning the non-r version of R, I think that is manageable.
And we rescheduled it to the next week.
The following week is probably better, but the next week is okay. It's fine. I'm pedantic.
Expected rainfall.
Rainfall. Again, you get that rainfall. Okay, thank you. Rainfall is a great bit of vocab, though. Now, in this next... Okay, so thoughts on part one. I will say I like the candidate's calm demeanor. I really do. I love the candidate's topic development in part one. I think that's super strong. I think, the length of the answers are just perfect. He's always on topic. He never goes off. One slight problem, there were a couple of questions where possibly he could be judged to be evading or refusing to play ball to answer the questions that were given to him. But I do think he still managed to answer them in a meaningful way, so I'm okay with that. I would say that maybe the enthusiasm level is, the energy level is just a little bit low, and that won't hurt you by itself. You don't have to be energetic, but generally, if you're enthusiastic and upbeat and energetic, you might find that you have a wider emotive range in your pronunciation, and maybe just your speech kind of sounds a little bit like this, like you have one voice. But I do think you still show enough intonation. So despite, a lack of perhaps enthusiasm or something like that, I still think you do have enough intonation in your vocab. You do have some problems with the r sounds, and there are tiny points where your pronunciation becomes a little bit disconnected, but in general I think your pronunciation is strong, and I think it seems a little bit stronger this time than it was last time. IMO. A couple of mistakes with grammar though, like let somebody to do something, that's a bit odd. Vocab is really, vocab is great, really good so far. Topic specific vocab, all of the vocab that you need, you're using it. Sometimes when you use words like bookworm and things like this, those hacky, I think possibly hacky words, the way you use those words are hurting you, and I don't think you need to force yourself to use them. But let's get into part 2, where the candidate needs to talk about a sport that he likes. Okay, fairly friendly question, I think. This isn't a past-focused one, so you're not telling a story. We're not going to have like narrative tenses and adverbs and sequences and things like this. It's going to be descriptive of a sport, but lots of opportunities to nail some vocab. Let's see how the candidate does with this. You start speaking now, please.
For example, football and basketball are my favorite types of sports, but
okay, there's a couple of things that are weird about that answer. Sorry, not the answer, the intro. For starting a long turn with for example, that's weird. Don't start long turns with for example. I don't know why, but for some reason I can see it on my video, but my OBS isn't picking up the last question. It says talk about a sport you like, blah 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 blah, and at the bottom it says and explain why you like it so much. That should be green, but for some reason there's something that's going on and it's not picking up, but it doesn't matter. The candidate starts with for example, which isn't a way to begin a long turn. So yeah, don't do that. And then he says different. Football and basketball are two of my favorite kinds of sport. Football, two of my favorite sports. Kinds of sports, I guess, might be like, I don't know, racket sports or endurance sports. But, basketball and football are my two favorite sports, is better than my two kinds of sports that I like. But okay, let's keep going.
if I had to pick one, it would definitely be BMX biking.
We've had this before, if I had to pick one, so just be careful with the way that you use that phrase. Using it twice, I guess, is absolutely fine, but we never want to use it so much that it draws attention to it. But okay.
If you don't know,
so we're going to talk about BMX biking. How well does the candidate know these terms connected to BMX biking? If he knows them well, he'll get a good score for vocab.
About this sport, it's a sort of sport doing different sorts of tricks and stunts.
Good.
On a special bicycle called BMX bike.
Cool. I love how he's paraphrasing in a way that is accessible for an outsider. Really good.
Compared to the usual bike.
Compared to, just kind of hear it, right? Compared to, just kind of hear it.
The BMX bike is smaller. The BMX sorts of tricks and stunts on a special bicycle called BMX bike. And compared to the...
maybe it's okay. Compared to, just, I hear a slight id, just slight.
Usual bikes that people ride every day. The
road bikes, maybe?
BMX bike is smaller with bigger wheels and
cool, nice comparative, smaller with bigger wheels.
And this reinforced frames and
reinforced, so not reinforced, but it should be reinforced. So the stress is not on re, but the main stress is on or, reinforced. So slight mispronunciation.
It's pretty suitable for doing different the difficult stunts, jumps, and flips.
Cool. Stunts, jumps, flips, really topic specific. Very nice.
And I got to know about this sport when
Cool. Got to know. Very connected. Very nice.
I was 13 years old. The government built a large skateboard area in our neighborhood.
I guess it's called a skate park, but skateboard area is fine.
But instead of skateboarding, most people in my neighborhood and my peers, my friends, they started to ride BMX bikes. They started to buy their first BMX bikes
Cool. Really well organized. This is nice and easy to follow.
and doing all sorts of tricks that they learned from YouTube
Tricks are just coming through a little bit.
videos, such as backflips and bunny hops.
Wow, backflips, bunny hops, really, really good stuff.
And all these wheelies. And the problem was that I didn't have my
The problem was that I didn't. Really, really nice.
own BMX bike, and I had to save up my pocket money for about
Called to save up my pocket money. The candidate's doing really, really well in part 2.
a year, and I finally bought my first
Nice sequences, and I finally bought really, really good in terms of cohesion.
bicycle. And within just a couple of weeks, I learned
Within a couple of weeks, very nice.
all the tricks. And not to sound braggy, but I was the only person who
Oh, it's so nice, isn't it? Not to sound braggy, but I was the only person who... It's so nice. It's so... Yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
was able to do this double bar spin, which
Double bar spin. He's using vocab that I have no idea about, but sounds right.
is the sort of trick in which you had to rotate your handlebar 360 degrees while you are in the air before landing.
The candidate knows his BMX stuff. I hope you get something about sport in the real test, because you're going to nail it.
And I learned quite a lot of things from this sport. I mean, it was not only the way to improve my health. I mean, but also it's
Again, we get that not only but also, and again, I'll make that point that we want to use language that doesn't draw too much attention from the examiner. Once the examiner says, didn't you say that before? That always makes them feel, it can, not always, I always say not always, not always, always, but always, not always. It can be an indication of some lack of flexibility when you start repeating phrases like "if I had to choose," or not only but also
also a good way to stay in a shape.
Stay in shape, not stay in a shape. Keep in shape, stay in shape, both are fine.
As I know, as far as I know, it helps me to improve my cardiovascular fitness.
I don't like it. As far as I know, it helps me to improve my cardiovascular fitness. That feels hacky, that feels IELTSy, that feels like a candidate just trying to use the term cardiovascular fitness because they like the term cardiovascular fitness, because they think the term cardiovascular fitness will score them points. I don't think people do BMX biking. I mean, sure, it might get your heart rate up, right, which is always good. All type of exercise is kind of good for our cardiovascular system, but I think endurance sports, those are the ones where it's really potentially good for the heart if you do it smart. BMX is more about the thrill, it's more about the excitement, it's more about achieving something that seemed dangerous, that seemed difficult, and doing something impressive. It's not about improving your cardiovascular system, is it? So it feels a little bit forced, a little bit hacky, and I wish you'd just stopped your speaking there, because you've done a great job in part 2.
And improve my joint
Okay.
mobility.
Thank you. Yeah, let's leave it there. All right, so minus that tiny little thing that I didn't like, this is one of the strongest part 2s I've heard. The organization was great. It was easy to follow. We didn't have like a bunch of repetition of ideas. Sure, he mentioned tricks a couple of times, but not in a way that I felt that he was going over the same ground. So there was really good logical progression. I like the backup story about how he got into it, and he saved up his money, he bought the bicycle, he did a great job of explaining what a BMX bike is, the different tricks that you learn. I think that was a really, really impressive part 2. Very calm, coherent, easy to understand, amazing vocab, decent, very decent grammar, maybe a mistake with articles like stay in a shape versus stay in shape. Okay. Yeah, really, really strong in part two. Let's get to part three. All right. So you've been talking about this sport, BMX biking, that you like. Let's talk a little more about sports and health now. How important is regular exercise for maintaining good health?
Depends on the people. I mean, if they have enough time, it's totally okay for them to do sports. It helps
Okay, for somebody to do something good.
them to stay in shape. It helps
Again, we get that stay in shape. So again, we get that little bit of repetition, and I don't want to notice this repetition because I really want to give the band 9 for lexical resource.
them to be fit. A lot of people get easily tired when they
Tired. Tired or American tired, but tired sounds a bit odd.
walk or when they climb the mountain. And if they are regularly doing something,
Again, regularly doing something. Some of the phonology, there are definite, limitations in phonology. I do think overall the candidate's phonology is very strong, but there are clear limitations, I think.
working on their fitness level, I think that
See, working on their fitness level, that sounds perfect. It sounds wonderful. It's band 9, and then we get like particularly something, and that's not band 9.
it's better for them.
And do you think modern lifestyles make it harder for people to stay active?
I don't think so.
Cool.
I mean, even if we
Like the even if clauses.
have a lot of time to use technology, watching YouTube and using social media, we still have some time to do some exercise.
It's not about technology, it's about modern lifestyles. I mean, technology is a part of that. I guess the point is that people nowadays are overworked or they're always busy, and part of that is technology, but it's not only technology.
For instance, in my hometown, there are a lot of people
Don't be afraid to pause a little bit. Your speed of speech, now just feels maybe slightly faster.
using social media. We still have some time to do some exercise. For instance, in my hometown, there
Yeah,
are
so don't be afraid to pause. We still have some time to do some exercise. For instance, in my home, and I think a bit of extra pausing is nicer. It allows you time to breathe. It allows you time to think, and it also gives just a bit more intonation and rhythm to the speech.
a lot of people going to the gym and playing different games in these football and basketball games. So I think that it has nothing to do with the development of technology.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the development of technology. We're talking about modern lifestyles. Now, technology is a part of that, but the question is, do you think modern... Let's go back. What was the question? It was about lifestyles, no?
I don't think so. It's better for them.
And do you think modern lifestyles make it harder for people to stay active? So it's not just about technology here, it's about modern lifestyles. So do be careful. I know in your brain you've probably just associated modern lifestyles with technology and then you've forgotten what the question was. It happens sometimes.
Using social media, we still have some time to do some exercise. For instance, in my hometown, there are a lot of people going to team and leadership skills, and it's
Sorry.
action. I mean, when they are
More than individual ones. So the question is, why do some people like team sports more than individual ones?
Uh, it has, I think that it's related to the social interaction.
I think this is now where social interaction fine, but interaction, again, pronunciation is a bit odd.
I mean, when they are working in a team,
But I remember the candidate kind of got into some choppy waters here.
they work with others and they learn skills like working in a team and leadership skills. And it's also a good way to spend time with their friends. And while individual sports is just things like it puts pressure a lot of on your mental ability. That's why
Yeah, but I don't know if I buy that answer. Sure, individual sports are mentally demanding, but so are team sports. I don't think it's fair to say team sports are not mentally demanding. That seems a bit weird.
there is a difference between preferences of people.
I don't know if it is. But don't team sports also put pressure on mental ability?
Not all of them. I mean, they mainly demand physical abilities.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
For instance, when you are playing football, you mainly focus on your physical ability. That I mean, you mustn't get tired, or you should be able to balancing the ball and
Should be able to balance, not balancing, but okay.
controlling all the other players. But when it comes to the chess, for instance, they only think about the next steps instead.
Yeah, but that's not because it's an individual sport. That's because it's a non-physical game, right? And that's why it's mentally demanding. Tennis, for example, that's a physically demanding game and mentally demanding. Team sports, yeah. So I don't, just because it's an individual, the point that you're making is that team sports require physical ability, whereas individual sports require mental ability. For example, chess. But I think chess isn't a good example of an individual sport. There are many people that say chess is not a sport. But okay, let's not. We can have a disagreement. That's fine.
Of doing anything physical.
But don't you think that in team sports, maybe there's mental stress that you might worry that you'll disappoint your teammates, for example?
But compared to the individual sports,
Yeah, compared to. Now we get that compared to, which is problematic. The first time he nailed it, it was perfect. The second time, it's like you could kind of hear it strange. And now this third time, it definitely sounds like a compared to. You'll disappoint your teammates, for example?
but compared to the
Hear it.
individual sports, it's pretty much less.
Pretty much less. It sounds strange, pretty much less. It's, yeah, much less is fine. Okay, let's talk about technology in sport now. How has technology changed the way that sports are played or judged?
I think that the technology, I don't know the exact
Sounds a bit like bit of a ch in there. Technology should have a hard cut. Technology.
names of the equipment that I used in football, for instance.
VAR, video assistant referee. Should you know this? No, it's fine. Can you get a band 9 without knowing VAR? Yes.
But they have this special equipment looking for the moment of goals, whether it was fair or not.
Whether it was fail or whether it was fair. I'm not sure what he says, but okay.
And as for the other sports, for instance, the BMX biking and this other race sports, and they are
Race sport. So yeah, again, the pronunciation race, that R sound really, it's not just affecting the R sound, but it's also affecting the vowels that surround or that come after the R. Race. So that A is really being overpronounced.
are using highly developed technology to
Highly developed. Highly developed. Did we get that? Developed?
sports, and they are using highly developed technology.
Developed. I know it's tough to put the put and the tut, this consonant cluster together. Developed. 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 You can soften the put if it makes it easier. So the put could soften to a but in something that we call accommodation. Developed. Developed.
To set the time and to give the fair scores to the players. I think that it improved the fairness in sport.
Cool. I think that's a really good point and a point well made and well explained.
Compared to the previous decades.
Don't use compared to again, variety in those cohesive devices is required for that 9. Mm-hmm. And do you think sometimes advanced equipment can give some athletes an unfair advantage?
Yeah, there may be some cases as they work depending on a fixed algorithm. That's why they can also make mistakes. But
I think the candidates misunderstood this question. So the question is about whether advancements in technology give some athletes an advantage which is unfair. Think about tennis, for example. If somebody has an amazing racket and they're playing against someone who has an old racket, the person with the amazing racket will do better. Recently, you might know marathon runners. A lot of marathon records have been broken because there's a very controversial new shoe which is just amazing. It's super expensive. I think it's made by Nike, and that gives people an unfair advantage. And Formula One, for example, right? If your car is faster than your opponent's car, feels a little bit unfair. That like, well, I could be a better driver than that person, but they win because they've got a really nice car and I haven't.
Compared to the fallible nature of
Poor Lewis Hamilton.
people, I think that they are
The fallible nature of people. I don't know where we're going with this. We're not answering the question, I think.
way better than us.
Which sports do you think athletes enjoy an unfair advantage because of advanced equipment? So I'm trying to like ask the same question again in a slightly different way.
Let me think. Um, I don't think that most people get advantage from these mistakes, but
What mistakes? I don't know why we're talking about mistakes. And also the pronunciation is mistakes, not mistakes, but mistakes.
in some cases they may. For instance, when in some football games there may be mistakes made by this equipment, and
No, okay, so the candidate's still thinking about this video referee technology.
they can
Okay,
get
thank you. So I interrupt with a thank you, not because the candidate's gone off topic or not because the candidate's speaking too long, but the candidate was never on topic. He's misunderstood the question. So, you want to give the candidate the best fighting chance. So if they misunderstand the question, the best thing for an examiner to do in your interest is to interrupt you, to say thank you, and to move to the next question.
big goals.
Thank you. And how has technology changed the way that fans watch or follow sports?
Well, it made it easier for the audience to watch the game.
Gain audience. So we have a problem with author earlier, now audience. So this seems to be a bit of a systematic problem with the pronunciation of this AU combination. In general, author, artist, audience, audio, authentic, American, authentic, audio, artist, but not the W sound. There are exceptions, like Australia has the clock sound, not the horse sound. Australia, Austria, and of course the car, Audi. So Audi has the our, but audience, no, author, no.
Games. I mean, even if despite the location
Even if despite the location, so a bit of reformulation, which feels a little bit chaotic there.
they are living, they can watch football games
But I like the use of despite.
that are being held in other regions.
Ooh, the games that are being held. Lovely, lovely, lovely. We get a nice little passive continuous with the relative clause, the games that are being held. Very nice.
In other countries.
And you could even drop the relative pronoun there, the games being held, an omitted relative pronoun.
And it's more accessible compared to the previous decades when there was geographical barriers to watch any sort of games.
Okay, geographical barriers. It feels a little bit forced, but it is fine in context.
For instance, in our country, we don't have any BMX biking competitions, but I always watch them on YouTube, which the games that are held in Germany.
Cool. It backs up his point that it's easier to follow sports thanks to technology. A fair point and well made.
For instance.
Okay, thank you. That is the end of the test. All right, so a decent performance. I just want to show you for the feedback. I want to show you the scores that I gave last time and the notes that I put. So these were the scores from last time. It was fluency and coherence 8. Felt that previously he developed his topics well. Nice range of cohesive devices, but he overused apart from. I didn't notice that overuse of apart from this time. But in compared to that one was overused a little bit this time. The only worry is the frequency of hesitations and self-corrections. I don't think the candidate had problems with hesitations and self-corrections in this one. A couple of the answers in part 3 were just slightly off topic, which is a little bit problematic. And I think probably the candidate's fluency and coherence, the fluency is nice. The answers, certainly in part 1 it was 9-ish, and in part 2 it was 9-ish. But I don't know about part 3. Let's have a look at the band descriptors. fluent with only very occasional repetition. I wouldn't say it's very occasional. I would say, there's not a lot in there, but there is some repetition. 8 is also very occasional repetition or self-correction. Interesting. Sorry, I should underline where I'm reading, because you're not mind readers. Any hesitation is only used to prepare the content of the next utterance and not to find words or grammar. And this is where, when you're looking for words like geographical barriers or bookworm, sometimes it's clear that you just take a moment to find that word, and that might stop you from getting the 9. Speech is situationally appropriate. Generally, yeah, but there are some instances where the phrasing is perhaps a little bit too formal in part 1. Topic development. So the topic, and you are good. I think previously you were like this part of the 8, and I think this time you are this part of the 8. So I think you're a higher 8 now than you were before, but for me, still a band 8. Now, previously I gave a 9 for grammatical range and accuracy, and I gave an 8 for vocab. This time it's going to be the opposite way, which is super frustrating as a candidate, right? I think lexical resource, I'm going to award the 9. Now, was it totally flexible and precise in all contexts? There's an argument to be made that no, it wasn't like totally precise in all contexts, but I do think that there was enough language in there, especially in part 2, that makes me think, and not just in part 2, you did really, you were very solid in part 1, you were very solid with vocab in part 3. There might be some examiners who don't like the way that you force the vocab, and for that they might drop it to an 8. So it is possible that it would be dropped to an 8. I think you demonstrated enough vocab for a 9, so I'm going to go with a 9. Fight me if you disagree. But for grammatical range and accuracy, there were definitely some mistakes that are not characteristic of native speaker speech. And so, I think there were a wide range of structures. There was flexibility. The majority of sentences were error-free, yes. Some inappropriacies, some non-systematic errors, a few basic errors. I think that is an accurate description of the grammar this time. So 8 for me for the grammar. And pronunciation, yeah, you have, accent has no effect on intelligibility. That's not always true, because I would say that the accent has minimal effect on intelligibility, because when you use words like particularly and it drops off at the end, or when you use words like outer and things like this, that does put some strain on the listener, just a little bit of strain, not much. The majority of the time your language is beautifully understandable, it's really clean, it's really clear. You have a wide range of phonological features, but you do have some inaccuracies, some lapses in rhythm for sure, but also some words that are mispronounced. Still easy to understand, but yeah, and I could definitely see why an examiner might give a 7 for pronunciation, but I think you have enough in there for an 8. But I definitely could see a justification. If I was marking an examiner and they awarded a 7, I would not ask the examiner for a justification for that. I would say, yeah, I understand why you've given the 7. So I could see why an examiner would give a 7. But for me, previously I gave a 7 for pronunciation. I thought the candidate had problems before with sentence stress, with id endings, and with the th sound. Definitely still has a problem with the th sound. The sentence stress seems to be much better, much better this time. Id endings, there are still a few of them, but it's not as noticeable as it was before. So you definitely have some improvements in pronunciation, which is good to know. So for me, fluency and coherence, 8, but you're a strong 8. Lexical resource, just about 9. Maybe justification for an 8, or there is justification for an 8. Grammatical range and accuracy is 8, and I'm going to give 8 for pronunciation too. Doesn't make any difference, I guess, if I give 8 or 7 for pronunciation, because the overall score will be 8.0. This one rounds down. It's from 8.25, rounds down to 8.0. The lowest possible score for this, maybe maybe somebody could give 7.5, right? They might give 8.887, which could be 7.5. So there is possible justification for 7.5, but I do think the candidate is better, just from an impression point of view. I think the candidate is better than a 7.5, and for me, 8.0 is a fairer mark for this candidate's performance rather than 8.0. Any areas of improvement? I think in most parts of English, you've probably hit a ceiling now, and I don't think just doing IELTS prep is really going to get you to any next level. I would say, like I mentioned with another candidate recently, try to answer questions directly and then add extra info. Don't do it the other way around. Be careful with how much you repeat phrases, like you had "if I had to choose" in comparison or compared to. What was the third one? There was definitely a third one. I've forgotten. But there was definitely another phrase where it's like, oh, I've heard that before. Don't start your part two with, for example. It's not a way to start a part two, sorry. Don't start it that way. Are there key improvements that you can make? Now, I think you probably have reached the ceiling. I think your level of English is borderline C1, C2. I think, if you want to do better at IELTS, do better at English. I would also say forcing vocab isn't helping you. I think the vocab that you used in part two felt really natural, and when you're trying to squeeze out words like cardiovascular, improve my cardiovascular stuff, and geographical borders and bookworm, the way that you use these words feels just a little bit forced, and it doesn't do you any favors. You've reached an amazing level of English, and I definitely think 8.5 is within reach. You're close to the 8.5. Honestly, I don't think you're going to get a 9 in the next 6 months, and I think the best. And again, I can't say for sure because I don't know you that well. But I think a better approach to getting a 9 would be forgetting about IELTS for the next 6 months, the next year, and focusing on something else in English. Focus on doing something in English. I know you teach English, and I think you prepare candidates for IELTS, which makes it a bit tricky because you're always in that IELTS zone. I think your head is too much in the IELTS sphere, and I think you would see a lot more improvement if you were able to use English in a functional way. And I don't just mean like chatting to people, but it might mean, starting some project, an online project where you're using English all the time and you're exposed to English and you notice more how other people use language in the real world rather than constantly looking at Niners and trying to copy the way that they speak, which often feels a bit more mechanical. But yeah, you're a very, very good user of English. You should be very proud of the level that you've reached. For me, this performance is 8.0, and I see a ceiling of 8.5 at the moment. Sorry if that's not what you want to hear, but yeah, those are my thoughts. But yeah, let me know what you think. Are my marks too harsh? Are my marks too generous? Do you think my marks are fair? And do you agree that the candidate, while the candidate is very strong and probably is just about maybe a C2 user, he's probably not a band 9? Would you agree with that? Let me know below. In the meantime, if you'd like to have your own practice IELTS speaking test with this level of feedback, or if you'd like me to check your IELTS writing tasks, I get all of my candidates from 2 places, my Facebook group or my Telegram channel. The Telegram is the one that's like far more active. I don't use the Facebook one that much. I just go there from time to time. So Telegram is probably the place to be. I also have a website, expertexaminer.com. So if you want to take part, join the groups or get in touch with me by email or something like that. More videos coming from me soon, but for now, bye-bye.